Hello and welcome to People's Perspectives. I'm Kevin Doney, and today I'm speaking with my good friend Jared.
Hello, everybody.
You would consider yourself moderate, right?
That's correct.
All right. So, enlighten me if in any way how growing up and your household life and all that influenced you having that opinion.
Well, I guess it kind of all goes back to my grandparents. They're pretty well evenly divided on, the political spectrum. There's a lot of conservatives, there's a lot of Democrats, they hated FDR, they voted for FDR, whatever. And that would lead to my mom not giving a crap about, I guess, either side, really. And my dad leans ever so slightly to the Republican side, but he's also a moderate like I am. So I guess neither of my parents having a real political, favoring really contributed to my own political views, I suppose.
Do you think that a person's own political perspective significantly influences what kind of people they're going to be friends with? And do you think that when someone's not conscious enough of their perspective in politics, it can lead to them ending up living in a bubble where they're only hanging out with people that have similar opinions to theirs, and they're not really getting a diverse spectrum of opinions and perspectives in politics and in culture in general, really?
Really? It depends on factors outside of political views. Now, there are conservatives and there are liberals that will, in fact, bubble themselves out from other people, like you said. They will only hang out or be friends with people that share their political views. I'm thinking of certain people right now that get really heated when somebody else has different political views than them. Me, personally, I'm not too worried about that. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody has their own views, and that's just how it's going to be. So I'm not really too concerned about that. But yeah, people definitely make up their own minds about certain things. Everybody takes a different path in life, and, it really all depends. There's so many varying factors, so many X factors that will determine a person's social group that go much further beyond their political views. But sometimes that really does contribute, and I personally don't think it really should, but for some people, it's just a different story, I guess.
If you had to pick, what would be the biggest downside to being a moderate?
The biggest downside to being moderate is that you usually end up disliking both candidates, as evidenced in our last presidential election. You've got Hillary Clinton with her whole email scandal and other shady things going on. You've got Donald Trump with his big mouth and his, to be frank, his frequent stupid remarks, among many other interesting things about him.
Right, so in the end, people from both sides will be disagreeing with you.
Yes, pretty much.
What do you think a good solution would be to the political divide in America today and the large amount of dissent among people and just the large amount of aggression and anger associated with politics in America today?
Well, we need somebody or a group of people from either side, I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat, to step up, be the candidate from that political party that says, hey, we can come to an agreement. Because it's originating from the parties. You hear the term gridlock a lot, and that's because, there's a lot of, like you said, aggression and anger and other negativity dwelling in the Capitol building, the White House, and other political areas too, and it's not healthy for our country, and the divide is only going to grow wider and wider unless we do something about it. Somebody has to step up, or if not somebody that has a lot of political clout, then somebody, like the American people in general could do it if they had the right mindset. But the atmosphere right now is not good. It's toxic, and I believe it needs to change.
Do you think it could be a largely bipartisan view that this democratic system only works when there is compromise and agreement from both sides?
Yeah, I think they don't believe that, but the problem is they want to talk about agreeing with each other, but they don't want to actually come to an agreement. It's a lot of talk and no action. Even Donald Trump said that he would be all action, no talk, but I'm not really seeing it from him right now, to be honest.
Let's talk a little more about that. What makes you feel that he isn't being as effective as president as you think he could be? Why is that?
Well, he sure likes to be on social media a lot, and it's very frustrating to see him say dumb things. I remember one tweet he had where he said something along the lines of, I would fight Joe Biden and he would run away crying. Now, why would you say something so childish and so immature about our former vice president? There's no reason for that.
Do you think that Donald Trump's behavior on Twitter only adds to the toxicity and anger and confusion in American politics today?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt, because I've seen the comments on social media, and I'm always expecting to see a lot of people, like, when he says something like, irresponsible, going like, "You're an idiot, Mr. President," but rather, it's like, people are going, "Nice job, Mr. President, I stand behind you, Mr. President." It's like, what backwoods, are you from? Like, don't be ridiculous, it's hateful, it's toxic, what he's saying is bad, don't stand behind it, you're better than that.
So do you think that in the end this has a negative effect on both sides of the political spectrum?
Yes, I think Donald Trump sometimes needs to calm down a little. I know he wants to play the role of the outsider, the guy that's going to fix everything, because he's trying to be like, I don't really know what his aim is. I feel like sometimes he wants to appear relatable to the American people by being an outsider that's going to drain the swamp, but I just don't think it's working. This persona just doesn't serve the American people well.
Do you think that another big problem embedded in the political system of our country is that throughout pretty much the entire nation's history, it's hard for a third party to take hold, if at all?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because, I think in Germany, for example, there's about four major parties. They have their conservative, their democratic one, and they also have a green party and some kind of maybe socialist party. I'm not really sure. I claim to be no expert in German politics, but yeah, it definitely contributes to that gridlock I was talking about earlier. There's the libertarians are trying to get in, the Green Party's trying to get in, but it never works. There's really no hope for them because they don't have enough influence and nobody allows for it.
Do you think that there is, however, a slow rise in third-party support and that there will perhaps be a positive change in the right direction in the future, especially with considering the 25% of the vote that the Libertarian Party had in the 2016 election?
Yes, in the 2016 election, the Libertarians did rise up a bit, and there was some talk. There was definitely talk on the news channels and everything that said that this might be the Libertarians' year. It didn't turn out to be, but they did better than they had in previous years, even if it wasn't by maybe much more. But yeah, the future could definitely be for them, but I don't know about the near future, but their influence may gradually increase if things between the two dominating parties don't improve.
Do you think that a large factor staying in the way of the growth of third parties is that in the presidential debate, the candidates from the third parties were denied being able to speak at the presidential debate on NBC?
Yeah, I do recall that debate, and I don't think it was the defining factor in how much influence they had, whether or not it was enough to get them a presidential seat or whatever, but I think it definitely contributed somewhat to that, and I think they should have more of a voice, because America is all about freedom of speech, and everybody from every political point of view is talking about that, so why not give it to them, honestly?
So then, do you think a possible solution would be to change the guidelines or requirements that NBC has for a presidential candidate being able to speak at the presidential debate on their broadcast channel?
Certainly. I don't see why not. They couldn't change their guidelines or anything. I think it makes more sense to have more voices included, because it creates more diversity, which is what we want, right?
Yeah, that's what this show is all about.
Yeah.
So, as a moderate, what is your opinion on abortion?
That's always a tough one. And as everybody already knows, I'm sure, conservatives are against it, and the liberals really want it. As a moderate, I would have to say, it really depends on the situation. I think if the woman in question theoretically is really irresponsible and she knew what she was doing, but then she decides that she wants an abortion after the fact, I personally think that's unacceptable, and she should have to, carry the burden or whatever of being a mother, or at least do something about it, because she deliberately got herself into that situation if she's being irresponsible, and she needs to find a way to solve that problem. But if it's say rape, then yeah, I think that's when abortion becomes acceptable, because the woman has no control in that situation.
So you're saying that if a woman is aware of the resources available to her, but she's not utilizing them, and then that results in an unwanted pregnancy, then she is obligated to carry out that pregnancy whether she wants it or not.
Yeah, I think so. And if she's not financially able to, take care of the baby, or her situation doesn't allow for it, or for whatever reason, she can just put it up for adoption, because there's always places like that.
Do you think that definitely a disrupting, dissenting factor in American society is the inability to understand the emotional and social impacts of carrying a child and being pregnant for 9 months?
I personally don't have too much experience with pregnancies myself, besides being in my mom's stomach for 9 months. But yeah, I don't think it's something that everybody can empathize with, simply because not everybody is a mother. It's just it's another one of those things that's a really hard topic to get over, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about it. I can't really speak for mothers everywhere, so I'd leave that up to them.
What is your opinion on net neutrality?
Oh, that brings me back to December of last year. I don't see why Ajit Pai had to meddle in that whole thing. I don't see the reason to change it. Well, I do see the reason, actually, because it's supposed to benefit big businesses. But you see, he got it passed anyways in the whole FCC vote back then, and nothing has really changed. They made it sound like a lot of things are going to change, but I don't think it's really affected anything.
Well, that's because as of this recording, the effects of that FCC decision began taking place today. So that's why there haven't been any effects yet. However, in the news recently, there have been states that have added to their state constitutions requirements for net neutrality for any internet providers wishing to make business in those states. Just telling you.
Oh, okay.
And it's also for them too.
Right.
I think it was also a very poor decision on the FCC's part.
Yes.
And however, we have yet to see long-term effects of that decision.
Yes.
Whether the internet providers will be responsible enough to continue on with net neutrality policies without that being a regulation is very unlikely, considering the mentality of businesses.
Yes.
Just like, because the goal of a business is to make money.
Right.
Seen this with Google and all those large tech companies. So, do you believe that a large part of like prejudice in America and division and dissent is the lack of information on social issues and what kind of people live and should have the right to live? For example, non-binary people. Do you believe that you have a clear understanding of what that means?
I mean, I know what a non-binary person is, essentially. It's somebody that does not conform to the two genders that are largely present in modern-day society. So I know of the definition.
Do you think that that it would be beneficial to have that topic be covered in the school curriculum as a requirement?
It might take a lot of effort to get it in there, but I think it would be beneficial, because whether people like it or not, they're going to have peers, and teacher students are going to be these people that are non-binary in the LGBTQ circle, and all that stuff. So I think it's definitely beneficial to have education on it, because I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
This isn't so current, but as a moderate, do you feel that Bernie Sanders as a presidential candidate was too socialist, was too liberal for America?
I don't know if there's been any presidential candidates that have been too liberal, too socialist for America, but I did hear a lot of accusations and such that he was, he was too socialist, or, whatever people want to say, but I don't necessarily think so, because back when FDR released Social Security, everybody thought
the climate was different then.
Yes, everybody thought that Social Security was ridiculous, and it even had social in the name, so everybody's like, oh, he's a socialist. There's always going to be somebody that's going to come along and shake things up, and usually it could really be people from any political party. But the point I'm trying to make is, there can be any presidential, candidate that can come up and shake things up, and if it's going to be Bernie Sanders, if it's going to happen to be him, then why not, right?
Do you believe that there is an actual lack of legitimacy with the profession itself considered that comes with being elected president but not having served in the military or served in political office prior to said election?
I don't think we've ever had a president quite like Donald Trump, from what I can recall.
Yeah, it's unprecedented.
Yeah, because Ronald Reagan was also sort of a celebrity, and I have a feeling that Donald Trump looks up to him, because I think I remember seeing a Instagram post where Donald Trump was looking at a picture of Ronald Reagan standing in front of it, like he was his, like, you know, his hair, whatever, and I was just like, alright, that's kind of dumb, but you see, Ronald Reagan was a celebrity. He was an actor, but he was also the governor of California before he became president.
Yeah.
So he knew politically exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, I feel like Trump's kind of ignoring that part to support his argument. Because Ronald Reagan was elected president, that makes Trump's presidency more legitimate.
Yeah.
Ignoring the fact that he served as governor of California.
Yeah.
Didn't he also serve in, like, a war or something, or no?
He might have.
Ah, okay. As a moderate, what is your take on gun control and the Second Amendment rights, and whether the right to bear arms is even still necessary in America today?
Gun control is definitely one of the hardest things to talk about. It's one of the most hot-button issues of our time, and for good reason, because there's all these shootings happening, and it's horrible, and we have yet to really come to a solution. This is where that whole political divide between the conservatives and the liberals, this is where it really starts to suck, because they both have their own solutions, and even if we hate, you know, either one of them, we still can't get a solution at all because of all the gridlock. And you already know what the conservatives want. They want to fight fire with fire. They want more guns in their schools, essentially. They want security guards. They want teachers to have guns in their desk and whatnot. The liberals want to say no to guns. They want to get guns out of there and reduce the number of guns that are had by people. This political maelstrom of, you know, gun rights and everything, I think it's going to stay for a very long time, and it probably won't end. But what you were saying about is the right to bear arms, is it still, like, relevant or whatever? I'm just not sure about that, because back then was a very different time, you know? Like, people would always, like, on the frontier, they were taking their guns to church with them and everything. You know, you always had your gun on you because it could get dangerous out there. But in this day and age, it's totally different, where everything's more, how do I say it? Everything's more organized. Everything's more regulated. Like, I don't think you need to be carrying, like, a 9mm pistol with you or a rifle with you to keep you safe when you're going somewhere, you know?
However, there is the argument that when you're living in a big city, such as New York City or Los Angeles, that your life is more at risk from burglary or rape, and that carrying a concealed weapon with you would be an effective form of self-defense to help preserve one's life. So what's your take on that argument?
Gun control is certainly one of those things where it really varies situation by situation. In my opinion, there's no one definite, like, solution to it. It really just, you know, it changes from case to case what could have been done to prevent the shooting or whatever. But I think when you're in those dangerous areas and there's, like, a higher risk, like a higher threat towards your livelihood, then yes, I think you should be able to have a concealed carry.
Yeah, if I'm gonna be honest, like, sometimes there are, like, these posts I see on, like, Twitter or Instagram that really piss me off. There was this, like, photo, I think it was of this, like, woman or something. It was like, oh, she got killed, and she was, like, 18 or 19 or whatever, and she would still be alive if the gun laws weren't at 21 and if it was at 18 in her state or whatever it was. And there's just like these images that are posted on social media, in my opinion, aren't very constructive to the conversation.
Yeah, definitely not.
Do you believe that the argument that because no guns works for Australia, it would work for the United States is an inappropriate argument because the United States is not Australia?
I've not actually heard much about gun rights in Australia and what their laws are. I have heard that throughout Europe they're much stricter, but, like, here's the thing. We have a lot of shootings in America, and I see all these edgy meme posts or whatever that are always politically motivated about America has shootings, but, like, Europe and England and all those places over there are having, like, these stabbings, some crazy guy driving a truck into a crowd of people or whatever. And I think the truth is, you know, even without guns, people are still going to find a way to be violent. You just take one thing away from them and they're going to use another weapon. It's really hard to say, you know, how far we'd have to go to restrict these rights to prevent all this.
Your argument is that, like, even if guns are taken away, it's not going to change that there will always be violent people, and that they'll just use some sort of other device or equipment, such as, like, a pencil or a knife or whichever, to deal harm to others.
Yeah, and the situation really varies by country to country, and I'll give you a really good example of a country that requires everybody to have guns. Like, it's Switzerland, right? And they have their own, like, militia. They require like all males or between, the ages of 21 to like 50 something maybe to carry a gun. You don't hear about anything happening in Switzerland. I mean, maybe stuff does and people just aren't reporting on it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Switzerland, but it seems to me to be a very peaceful country where these shootings and attacks just aren't happening, and they have very loose gun laws compared to even us, because everybody's carrying a gun that's like, between a certain age, so it's working out for them apparently.
What's your opinion on transgender people?
I haven't experienced thoughts in my head myself of wanting to become a woman or, anything of the sort. So I can't empathize with transgender people, but I can sympathize with them, You're feeling something inside. You're feeling like, this isn't me. This isn't my true identity. I feel like I'm something else. And you want to change. You want to break out of that. And you want to become your true self. And there's still, even in this, very progressive, day and age, you want to show who you really are. And people are saying, no, that's not true. That's not right. Whatever they want to say to stop you. And I think if we just let them be, then I think that's really the best solution, It doesn't need any extra attention. I don't think we need... What was it? Well, I don't want to say that they don't need a Pride Month, but you don't need a Pride Month that's being crammed down your throat with, hey, I'm gay. Like, I'm not going to cram it down your throat that I'm a white, straight male. I'm a cis male. I mean, can you imagine the backlash I'd get? I feel like some of those people would be pissed. I mean, I don't know.
Do you believe that the argument that there shouldn't be a Pride Month is very aggressive and almost infringing on civil rights, and it just comes from a lack of understanding of what Pride Month really is and what the purpose is behind it?
I have not seen much of what exactly Pride Month is about, other than what is implied by an LGBT Pride Month, but I think that it's fine if they have one. I just don't think it needs to be crammed down everybody's throats, These businesses don't need to be making everything all rainbowy and everything. It's not really necessary. Just let them have their pride and, it's not a big deal.
The argument that an intense amount of marketing for Pride Month is unnecessary could be considered illegitimate when looking at Halloween or Christmas or Valentine's Day, right?
Oh, using Pride Month as a sort of marketing tool, yeah. I haven't seen a whole lot of that. In fact, the only, really large example I've seen is I'm a competitive Smash 4 player, and there's this team that, is sponsoring the players, and they're selling these shirts that have, the rainbow flags on them or whatever. Now that, I don't really understand the point of that at all, except to maybe sponsor some sort of LGBT event, but, I mean, I guess if they want to treat it like a holiday, then sure. I don't really care either way.
Yeah, because what you were saying earlier about, this shouldn't be shoved down my throat.
Yeah.
Can it be said that a person who's single on February the 14th, regardless of their sexuality, I guess unless they're asexual or something, would have a similar opinion toward Valentine's Day as you do toward Pride Month?
I mean, I am the theoretical person in your description too, so yeah, I think it definitely goes both ways. Definitely don't want it to be crammed down your throat on a Valentine's Day especially.
Because, well, no, I'm not saying the idea of being gay. I mean the marketing and it's Valentine's Day, you should go
yes.
to a restaurant. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. All right. Because really, the purpose of Pride Month isn't to shove down people's throats how gay they are and how different they are from you. It's just celebrating who they are and their identity as a person. Do you understand that?
Yeah, kind of. I do.
All right. Of course, the true purpose of Pride Month can be very skewed when you're looking at the wrong parts of social media, or when you're hanging around people with aggressive and hateful viewpoints, like when you're listening to some very mean podcast or whatever.
Sure.
But I don't know. Perhaps, do you think that maybe a possible solution to the negative attitude toward Pride Month would be including heterosexuals in that celebration as well?
Yeah, I don't see why not. They could certainly be in it if they really wanted to be, but once again, it's not something you'd want to force or anything. Just let them be in there if they want to support their gay friends and everything.
Do you think that an argument, a viewpoint against that could be the comparison of people asking for a White History Month, since February or January, whatever, is the Black History Month?
Well, I don't know, because a White History Month and an LGBT month or Pride Month they're two different things, and I don't know. I mean, I guess you could have a White Pride Month, but I mean, I wouldn't be offended by it. because I know very well of the achievements, or whatever you want to say, of the white people. I mean, it wouldn't bother me either way, but I know a lot of people would, and I could totally understand why it would bother them.
Do you think that there could be an argument that that would be very unnecessary, considering that throughout history, black people have been under constant political and social and emotional and pretty much like all forms of oppression throughout American history and history outside of that as well, that would make a Black History Month much more important and more significant and more necessary than White History Month, especially considering the high inclusion of what could be considered white history in the curriculum of high schools today. Do you think that that would negate the importance of the idea of a White History Month?
Yeah, I think it would, because you're right, you know, the African American people for a very long time have been under oppression, and even today you see there's still debates raging about where they truly stand in the American social, like, you know,
structure.
Yeah, and everything. It's a very hard issue to figure out, like a lot of other things going on right now, and negating the importance of it, I don't know. I really can't say, because no such White History Month exists at this moment.
Do you think that such an idea comes from people feeling that Black History Month makes black people feel that they're more important or superior to white people?
Well, I've never heard of that accusation before, but, you know, I think everybody is equal, and I don't think Black History Month should give black people any reason to think that they're superior to other races, because that makes them racist, and it just doesn't work out in the end.
Right. So all these different allocated parts of the year, Hispanic History Month and Black History Month and Pride Month, they're all about celebrating identity and heritage and whichever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like all everyone's really searching for is equality and social acceptance.
Yes.
And the fear of that not being a reality for them motivates them to speak from a place of hate and ask for things for themselves that aren't really necessary to make themselves feel better about who they are, because they may be ashamed of who they are.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an issue, because, you know, you never want to be speaking from hate, because speaking from personal experience, if you speak from hate, then most of the time you'll regret it later. So, you know, when you're asking for these sorts of things, these equalities and everything, you've got to be real careful, because you don't want to create another firestorm. You don't want to create more hatred, because when you speak from your heart with a heart full of hate, then all you're doing is creating more hate, and it never, ever works out in the end.
All right, well, thank you for talking to me today. Hopefully this brings to light a moderate perspective on the current political climate in America today, and also hot-button topics in American politics right now. So thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you all for watching. This has been People's Perspectives. Bye.